And with the first pick in the NFL Draft, this team selects very poorly. Yeah, in this decade, some teams have been terrible at drafting players. All franchises have an off year or so, but there are a select few you can always count on to screw it up. How do they do this every time? They can't even get lucky once? These teams have passed on so many future stars, you'd think they are doing it on purpose. And one team has been so bad at drafting quarterbacks that they have given up on it altogether. This is the Gridiron. The Chicago Bears have been one of the worst teams at drafting year after year. Now, we'd like to make it clear not every pick was horrible. The Bears have drafted the likes of Mike Ditka, Gale Sayers, Dick Butkus, Walter Payton, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, and others. There have been shining spots peppered throughout the franchise's history, but there have been a lot of dark spots too. For instance, let's take the last 7 years. In that span, the Bears have had almost no players drafted to have earned first-team All-Pro or even second-team All-Pro honors. The only one was their cornerback, Jaylon Johnson, for the 2023 season. Players that Chicago selects usually don't go far into their careers. Some might say Roquan Smith, the phenomenal linebacker, did, but only once he left the Bears for the Ravens, so he should not count. Sure, it isn't all about drafting players who go on to win All-Pro honors. Teams can still get good, solid players. Sometimes teams get players that are considered a steal in the draft, but not the Chicago Bears. For example, going back to the 2017 draft, the Bears had the 3rd overall pick, and they had their eyes set on one guy. So they traded that 3rd pick, along with several other picks, to San Francisco to acquire the 2nd overall pick, all to draft Mitch Trubisky. The Bears wanted that steal in the draft, but of course, Trubisky never worked out and ended up becoming a backup for several NFL teams throughout his brief career. Even worse is that the Bears passed on Patrick Mahomes that draft year too. The Bears remain as the only NFL franchise to never have a quarterback throw for over 4,000 yards in a single season. They're continually at the bottom of the league, resulting in having high draft picks almost every season. Even with those high draft picks, they remain a garbage team. We will see how Justin Fields will pan out, but his time with the Bears was a roller coaster, one with lots of drops. If he ends up having a good career, it will not be in Chicago. He was their first-round pick, 11th overall, in the 2021 draft. It's 2024, and he already isn't on the team anymore. The Bears once again will have a shot at redemption with the 1st and 9th pick in the 2024 draft, but judging by their past, it's not looking good. Their team is in a much better position now to support a rookie quarterback with some solid skill players like DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Swift, none of whom they drafted, by the way. But is this team the worst at selecting quarterbacks? Or is one even worse? If our example of the Bears usually drafting high due to poor records is any indicator of a terrible franchise cycle, then the Cleveland Browns are well situated on this list. Let's travel back to the 2007 draft, when the Browns selected Brady Quinn, 22nd overall. He was in Cleveland for 3 years and started only 12 games. He threw 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in that time. Typically, you'd like your first-round pick to throw more touchdowns than games started. There was also the 2012 draft, when the Browns had the 22nd overall pick again. They went for a quarterback again, and were disappointed again. They got Brandon Weeden, who played 2 seasons for the Browns and threw 23 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. After 2 years of him, the Browns were ready for a new quarterback, and still needed to fill some other important positions. In the first round of the 2014 draft, they found themselves with 2 picks. With the 8th overall pick, they passed on Aaron Donald, Odell Beckham Jr., Ryan Shazier, and C.J. Mosley, all eventual Pro Bowlers, and chose Justin Gilbert at cornerback. Gilbert played 2 seasons in Cleveland, then just 1 more season in the NFL. He did get 1 interception while in Cleveland, so there was at least a stat there. Not to worry, Cleveland also had the 22nd overall pick again that year, and they again spent it on a quarterback, this time by the name of Johnny Manziel. So 2 seasons of Johnny Football, all the drama, all the disappointment, all for 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Ouch! Cleveland needs to realize the 22nd overall pick is cursed and to never use it on a quarterback. But there's one team that's arguably the absolute worst at drafting, no matter where their pick falls. A team known to be in the basement of the league so often the New York Jets keep getting high draft picks. They've been looking for a quarterback for forever, but their issues range across all position types. The Jets have been a solid defensive team for a long time, and back in 2012, they needed to bolster that unit. In the 2012 draft, with the 16th overall pick, they drafted the defensive end out of North Carolina, Quentin Coples. The Jets still needed a linebacker for their defense, but also a wide receiver. No worries, they could go either way. Both Bobby Wagner was sitting there at linebacker and Alshon Jeffrey at wide receiver. Take your pick, New York Jets. And they selected Stephen Hill. Now, if you're wondering who Quentin Coples and Stephen Hill are, you're not alone. Coples only lasted 4 years in the NFL, and a bigger disappointment was Hill, only playing 2 seasons and not even hitting 600 yards total. Over the next several years, the Jets kept missing. They needed to replace Darrelle Revis, and with the 9th overall pick in the 2013 draft, got Dee Milliner. His first season, he played 13 games, started 12, and had 3 interceptions along with 56 tackles. Then, the downward spiral. 3 games in 2014, 5 games in 2015, no production. And then he was out of the NFL. In the 2014 draft, the Jets decided to go with a safety. Future Pro Bowler HaHa Clinton-Dix was available. But instead, they chose Calvin Pryor out of Louisville. He only played 3 seasons with the Jets, and then 2 games with the Jaguars in 2017, before he was out of the league completely. The 2014 draft was rough all around. The Jets had 12 picks, and only 3 of them ever started. Their best-rated pick from that year was wide receiver Quincy Enunwa, who played 5 years and had 5 total touchdowns. In 2015, the Jets were still trying to rebuild the defense and also wanted to try again at wide receiver. Their first-round pick was finally a hit with Leonard Williams, but the wide receiver they took in the 2nd round, Devin Smith, played 2 seasons in New York, amassing 10 catches and 1 touchdown. Know who else was available? Tyler Lockett. He went in the 3rd round when the Jets drafted linebacker Lorenzo Molden, who also only played 2 seasons with the Jets. The rest of their picks that year resulted in another poor overall draft. In 2016, the Jets decided it was time to commit to drafting quarterbacks. However, they started that draft off with linebacker Darren Lee, who only played 3 seasons with the Jets and was beyond underwhelming. But in the 2nd round, the Jets found their guy at quarterback, Christian Hackenberg. He ended up never even playing a single game. So that was a dumpster fire. But they were still committed to finding a quarterback. Once 2018 rolled around, the Jets would have an easier time getting a quarterback because they had the 3rd overall pick. With Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson being available, in classic Jets fashion, they selected Sam Darnold. That's right, the guy who was seeing ghosts while he was playing. Not only was Darnold's time in New York a disaster to the tune of a 3-year stint with a 13-25 record, 45 touchdowns to 39 interceptions, but it was so disheartening to see all the talent in the 1st round of that draft that the Jets missed out on. Of the 29 picks after the Jets in the 1st round, 14 of them became Pro Bowlers. We mentioned Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. There was also cornerback Denzel Ward, defensive end Bradley Chubb, linebacker Roquan Smith, safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, and linebacker Tremaine Edmonds, to name a few. By the end of the 2020 season, they dropped Darnold. That's why in the 2021 draft, the Jets were ready to try again. Last time it was the 3rd overall pick. This time it was 2nd. And this was quite the quarterback class. It was also quite the offensive class in case the Jets wanted to improve their offense in other ways. Trevor Lawrence went first, so he was off the board. But they had options like Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, and Penei Sewell. Even Justin Fields and Mac Jones were available. The jury is still out on how their careers will end up, but it sure seems better than it does for the Jets' 2nd pick, Zach Wilson. The Jets were enamored with Wilson, like he was a young Aaron Rodgers. They threw him out there on day 1, and he was clearly not ready. Not ready for the game, and not ready to lead an NFL team. His game was as bad as his interviews, like the time his defense held the Patriots to 3 points until the very last seconds and the Jets had 103 yards of total offense, including Wilson's 9 completions for 44 passing yards, and when asked if he let the defense down, Wilson simply said, "No." This was the same quarterback who had his own teammates wearing shirts of his backup, Mike White. In 3 years with the Jets, Zach Wilson had a 12-21 record, 23 passing touchdowns, and 25 interceptions. The Jets have been so awful with the draft, especially with QBs. They've now resorted to finding 40-year-old quarterbacks at the end of their careers and just hoping their Achilles don't tear. They did recently draft Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, who were Offensive and Defensive Rookies of the Year. So let's hope their careers continue on that upward path. But still, 2 great picks won't erase decades of the worst picks you've ever seen.